The phone vibrated against my desk like an angry hornet, Linda Avery's name flashing on the screen. My fingers hovered over the reject button. Journalists were never bearers of good news. But something made me pause, maybe the same instinct that helped me write endings to my thrillers before I knew the middle. Holly Bennett? This is Linda Avery. I know you don't do interviews, but hear me out. We're doing a series on family secrets for our podcast, and your mother's name kept coming up. My throat tightened. Of course it did. Vivian Bennett, America's favorite lifestyle guru of the 90s, perfect mother, perfect host, perfect liar. Not interested. The words came out automatically, a defense mechanism honed over years. What if I told you we found Margaret Collins? The pen I'd been fidgeting with snapped in half, blue ink staining my fingers like bruises. Margaret, our former nanny, the only witness to what really happened behind the pristine walls of the Bennett household. She's willing to talk, Holly. About everything. I stood up, pacing my office past the wall of my published books, each one a thinly veiled attempt to exorcise my childhood demons. Why now? Because your mother's making a comeback. New lifestyle brand reality show, the works. She's selling the same perfect family narrative, and Margaret says she can't stay silent anymore. My father's voice echoed in my head from our last conversation. Sometimes the truth needs a spotlight, Holly, even if it burns. The podcast reaches millions, Linda continued. This could be your chance to. To what? Destroy my mother's career? Get revenge? To tell your story. The real story. I stopped at my window, staring at my reflection. At 31, I still saw traces of that terrified little girl in my eyes, the one who learned to smile for cameras while hiding bruised self-esteem under designer dresses. My therapist would say this is a terrible idea, I muttered. What do you say? The question hung in the air like smoke. My stepmother Rachel had always told me that healing comes from facing our demons, not running from them. But this wasn't just facing them, this was inviting them to dance. Send me the details, I heard myself say. I'll think about it. After hanging up, I called my father. Tom Bennett answered on the second ring, his voice carrying that permanent note of concern he'd developed since leaving my mother. Dad, remember when you said the truth needs a spotlight? What's happened? I explained about Linda's call, about Margaret, about the podcast. He listened in silence, and I could picture him running his hand through his silver hair, a habit from his professor days. Your mother will fight back, he said finally. You know how she operates. I'm not that scared little girl anymore. No, you're not. You're a warrior with a pen. But Holly. He paused. Make sure you're doing this for the right reasons. And what would those be? Healing, not hurting. Though sometimes they look remarkably similar. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and typed Vivian Bennett into the search bar. Her face filled the screen, still perfect, still poised, still lying through her expertly whitened teeth about our beautiful family dynamic in her latest interview. My phone buzzed again, Linda sending the podcast details. The episode would air live in 3 weeks. 3 weeks to decide if I wanted to tear down the facade my mother had spent decades building. I touched my screen, tracing the artificial smile I'd inherited and learned to hate. Game on, mother, I whispered. Let's see how your perfect life holds up under a spotlight. The box of childhood memorabilia sat on my desk like a ticking bomb. I'd retrieved it from the storage unit where I'd buried it along with other remnants of my past, telling myself it was research for the podcast. But my hands still trembled as I lifted the lid. The first photo made my stomach clench. There we were on national television, the perfect Bennett family. Mother in her signature pearl necklace, father in his professor's blazer, and me in a dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent. All of us smiling like we'd been programmed. Look at the camera, darling. No, tilt your chin down. You look fat when you hold it that way. Vivian's voice echoed in my head, precise as a surgeon's knife. I could still feel her fingers digging into my shoulder, arranging me like a doll while the makeup artist touched up my face. My phone rang. Rachel, my stepmother. Your father told me about the podcast, she said without preamble. Are you sure about this? I picked up a ribbon from one of Mother's Young Lady of the Year pageants she'd forced me into. You didn't see the good days, Rachel. The days when she'd actually seem proud of me. That's what made the other days so confusing. The good days were part of the manipulation, Holly. We both know that. I closed my eyes, remembering the afternoon I'd won first place in a writing competition. Mother had been ecstatic, parading me around at her garden party. My brilliant daughter, she'd called me. Then later, when the guests had gone, next time try not to slouch during your reading. You're not some common street performer. I found my old diaries, I told Rachel. Want to hear something interesting? I started writing thriller novels because they were the only books Mother wouldn't read. She said they were beneath her. And now you're a best-selling author in the genre she despises. That's not coincidence, is it? Neither is her comeback timing, I said, pulling out a newspaper clipping announcing Vivian's new lifestyle brand. She's launching right when my new book releases. She always did know how to steal the spotlight. Rachel's silence spoke volumes. She'd witnessed the aftermath of Mother's perfectionism. My panic attacks, my trust issues, my obsessive need to control my own narrative. The doorbell rang, making me jump. Through the security camera, I saw Linda Avery standing on my porch, holding what looked like old VHS tapes. I have to go, I told Rachel. Linda's here. Holly. Rachel's voice softened. Remember what we talked about in therapy. Revenge might feel like healing, but it's not the same thing. I let Linda in, noting how she scanned my living room with a journalist's eye. You have your mother's taste in art, she said. I have her pieces facing the wall, I replied, pointing to the reversed paintings. It's my version of therapy. Linda smiled, setting the tapes on my coffee table. These are from your mother's first TV series. The unedited footage. Margaret kept them. My heart stuttered. Why would she? Insurance, maybe? Protection. Watch them before you decide about the podcast. I picked up the first tape, labeled Family Harmony Series, Episode 1 Raw Footage. There's something else, Linda said, pulling out her phone. Your mother's team reached out. They're offering a substantial amount to kill the podcast story. A laugh escaped me, bitter as old coffee. Of course they are. What did Margaret say? She said to tell you about the Christmas party. 1998. The room tilted slightly. That party, the night everything changed. The night I found Mother in her study, shredding what I now knew were Father's letters. The night she'd looked at me with such cold fury that I'd started plotting my escape. Tell Margaret I'll do the podcast, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But first, I need to watch these tapes. Linda nodded, heading for the door. One more thing. Your mother's launching her brand with a mother-daughter cooking show. She's been hinting to the press that you might appear as a guest. The audacity of it hit me like a physical blow. After 15 years of silence, she thought she could just script me back into her perfect family narrative? I turned to the wall of reversed paintings. Time to face forward, I whispered, reaching for the first frame. The VHS footage flickered to life on my TV screen, grainy but clear enough to make my hands shake. Behind the scenes of Mother's famous Christmas special, 1998. The camera caught what the audience never saw. Mother grabbing my arm between takes, her manicured nails digging into my skin. Margaret, could you fix Holly's hair? She looks like she's been dragged through a hedge. Mother's voice, honey sweet for the crew, poison underneath. The doorbell rang, jolting me from the memory. Margaret Collins stood on my doorstep, 15 years older but still wearing that same concerned expression. You shouldn't watch those alone, she said, stepping inside. Her eyes found the paused image on the screen. That episode. I almost quit that night. Why didn't you? Because of what I found in your mother's study afterward. Margaret sat down, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The letters from your father. My throat constricted. What letters? She reached into her bag, pulling out a bundle tied with faded ribbon. I made copies before she burned them. Your father wrote to you every week after the divorce. Not just Christmas and birthdays like she told you. The paper felt fragile in my hands. Dad's familiar handwriting swimming before my eyes. Dear Holly Bear, one began, using his old nickname for me. I miss you more each day. Your mother says you're too busy with pageants to visit, but I'll keep trying. There's more, Margaret said softly. That Christmas night, after you went to bed, I overheard your mother on the phone with her publicist. She was planning to use your eating disorder in her comeback story. America's perfect mother saves troubled daughter. That was the pitch. The room tilted sideways. I'd never told anyone about those dark months, about the ways I tried to gain control when everything else felt chaos. My phone buzzed, a text from Linda. Vivian just announced her new show. She's using old footage of you too. Check social media. My hand shook as I pulled up the video. There we were cooking together in our matching aprons, looking like the perfect mother-daughter duo. The caption read, "Coming soon. Cooking with the Bennetts. A story of family, forgiveness, and finding our way back to each other." "She's using me again," I whispered, without even asking. "Holly." Margaret's voice was gentle but firm. "There's something else you need to know about your mother. Something I witnessed the night your father left." But before she could continue, my phone rang. Dad's number. "Have you seen it?" he asked, his voice tight with anger. "She's manipulating the narrative again, sweetheart. But there's something you should know before you do this podcast." "What is it?" "The real reason I left. It wasn't just the divorce. Your mother. She threatened to destroy my career if I fought for custody. Said she'd tell the university board about affairs I never had, students I'd supposedly harassed. She knew they'd believe her. America's perfect mother versus a nobody professor. The truth hit like a physical blow. All those years thinking Dad had chosen his new life over me when really, there's more," he continued. "Rachel found something in our old house when we were cleaning out the attic. Medical records. Your mother's psychiatric evaluations from before you were born. They diagnose her with." A sharp knock at my door cut him off. Through the security camera I saw her, Vivian Bennett herself, perfectly coiffed, camera ready as always. "Holly, darling." Her voice carried through the door. "We need to talk about this little podcast situation. I have a proposition that could benefit us both." Margaret grabbed my arm, her face pale. "Don't open it. You're not ready for her yet. Not until you know everything." I stood frozen between the door and the TV screen, still showing that long ago Christmas, caught between past and present, between the scared little girl I was and the woman I'd become. "Holly." Mother's voice again, sweet as arsenic. "Don't make me handle this publicly, darling. You know how that always ends." I looked at Margaret, at the letters in my hands, at the paused image of Mother's perfectly masked cruelty. "Actually," I called back, my voice steadier than I felt, "I think it's exactly time we handled this publicly." Dr. Samuel Avery's office felt smaller than usual, the walls pressing in as I paced between his leather chair and the window. The psychiatric records from Dad lay open on the coffee table between us, each page a new revelation about Mother's past. "Sit down, Holly," Dr. Avery said, his voice steady. "You're making me dizzy. Did you know?" I spun to face him. "When Linda first approached me about the podcast, did you know your wife was investigating my mother?" He adjusted his glasses, a tell I'd learned meant he was choosing his words carefully. Doctor-patient confidentiality works both ways. "I couldn't tell Linda about you, just as I can't tell you about your mother's sessions with me 15 years ago." The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "She was your patient? Holly." All those times I talked about her, spilled my guts about the emotional manipulation, the hidden letters, the eating disorder. "You knew her version already." He leaned forward, hands clasped. "Which is exactly why I referred you to another therapist back then. But you insisted on staying." A laugh escaped me, bitter and sharp. "Because you were the only therapist who seemed to truly understand what she was capable of." God, what an idiot I've been. "You're angry. That's valid. But ask yourself, is this anger about my past with your mother? Or about what you found in those records?" The diagnosis swam before my eyes. Narcissistic personality disorder with histrionic features. Documented cases of manipulation and emotional abuse in her own childhood. A pattern repeating itself through generations. My phone buzzed, another message from Mother, her third today. "The network loves the idea of us co-hosting. Think of the healing narrative, darling. We could help so many other mothers and daughters." "She's trying to control the story again," I said, showing Dr. Avery the message. "Using my pain to rebuild her brand. And you're not doing the same with this podcast?" The question hit like a slap. Before I could respond, his office door opened. Linda stood there, face pale. "Sorry to interrupt, but Holly needs to see this." She held up her tablet, showing a live stream of Mother on a morning show. My daughter and I have had our struggles, Mother was saying, dabbing at perfectly dry eyes with a tissue. Her father's abandonment affected her deeply, led to some serious issues with food and attention-seeking behavior. But I'm hoping this show will help us heal. The tablet clattered to the floor as my legs gave out. Dr. Avery caught my arm, guiding me to the chair. She's using my eating disorder, I whispered, just like Margaret said she would. There's more, Linda said quietly. The network wants both sides of the story. They're offering you a segment tomorrow morning. Dr. Avery's phone lit up, Rachel's number. He answered on speaker. Holly's with you. Her voice was urgent. Don't let her do the morning show. I found something else in the attic. Videos Vivian took of Holly as a teenager. She's been editing them, making it look like what? Like Holly was unstable, violent. She's building a defense, Samuel, in case Holly goes public with the truth. The room spun as another piece clicked into place. The psychiatric records, I said. She wanted me to find them, to see that mental illness runs in the family. She's discrediting me before I can expose her. Holly. Dr. Avery's voice cut through my rising panic. Whatever you decide about tomorrow, remember, she's expecting you to react exactly as she's trained you to. The question is, are you still that scared little girl? I stood up, legs steadier now, anger burning through the fear. No, I'm a writer, and it's time to tell my story my way. Even if it means burning every bridge? Linda asked. I thought of the letters from Dad, of Margaret's testimony, of the unedited footage showing Mother's true nature. Some bridges, I said, deserve to burn. My phone buzzed one final time, Mother again. Last chance, darling. Choose carefully. I deleted the message without reading further. The time for careful choices was over. The morning show's green room felt like a cage. Through the monitor, I watched Mother charming the hosts, her practiced laugh tinkling like broken glass. My segment would follow hers, separate interviews, her choice. Always maintaining control. Linda burst in, clutching her phone. You need to see this. Now. She pulled up an email from an anonymous source. Footage from Mother's upcoming show pilot. But instead of cooking segments, there were carefully edited clips of me. Age 16, screaming during one of our fights. 17, throwing a book across my bedroom. 18, crying hysterically after she'd discovered my food diary. She's been sitting on these for years, Linda said, waiting for the right moment. The door opened again. Margaret slipped in, looking haunted. Holly, there's something else. About your grandmother's death. My hands went cold. What about it? Your mother. She knew about the faulty brakes. She found the mechanic's warning notice 2 days before the accident, but she never told your grandmother. The monitor showed Mother dabbing at her eyes, telling the hosts about her dear mother's tragic accident, and how it made her determined to be the perfect parent. Why are you telling me this now? My voice sounded distant, strange. Because she's doing it again. Margaret handed me a manila envelope. These are recent brake inspection reports for your car. Someone requested them last week using your mother's old production company credentials. The room tilted sideways. Mother's voice filtered through the monitor. Sometimes tough love is the only way to save our children from themselves. My phone buzzed, Rachel. Don't go on air. Your father found something in Vivian's old study. Call me. But before I could, a production assistant appeared. 5 minutes, Miss Bennett. Linda grabbed my arm. Holly, wait. There's more to consider. No. I stood up, smoothing my dress. The same shade of blue Mother wore, her signature color. There's nothing left to consider. The podcast is tomorrow, Linda pressed. We can handle this methodically, present all the evidence. She's not going to stop, I said, watching Mother air kiss the hosts goodbye on the monitor. She'll keep twisting everything, using my pain to feed her narrative, just like she did with her own mother. Margaret touched my shoulder. Your grandmother's death was never proven to be anything but an accident. If you accuse her on live television, I'm not going to accuse her of anything. I pulled out my phone, typing quickly. I'm going to let her bury herself. The production assistant returned. 2 minutes. Your mother's asking to speak with you before you go on. Through the green room window, I saw her approaching, perfectly coiffed, camera ready. Our eyes met through the glass, and for a moment, I saw something flicker behind her practiced smile fear. I pressed send on my phone. Seconds later, her phone chimed. She read the message, her face going slack. What did you do? Linda whispered. Sent her the brake inspection reports. And a choice. I watched Mother's hands shake as she typed a response. Either she pulls the edited videos and cancels her show, or I go on air with the truth about grandmother. Holly. Margaret's voice wavered. That's exactly what she would do. The words hit like a physical blow. She was right, I was becoming my mother, using secrets as weapons, manipulation as armor. My phone buzzed with Mother's reply. You've learned well, darling. But remember, I taught you everything you know. The production assistant's voice. 30 seconds. I looked at the monitor, at Mother's perfect mask now back in place as she chatted with the hosts, at my own reflection in the green room mirror. Wearing her color, playing her game. No, I said, stepping back from the door. I'm not doing this her way. Linda frowned. What are you thinking? I pulled out my phone again, this time dialing the podcast producer's number. Move the recording to today. Right now. No preparation, no perfect masks, no edited versions of the truth. But tell them to start streaming live in 15 minutes. It's time everyone saw what really happens when the cameras are rolling. Through the window, I watched Mother's face as her phone buzzed with the notification. For the first time in my life, I saw her mask crack completely. The podcast studio's red recording light blinked like a warning beacon. Mother sat across from me, her perfect posture a shield, her smile frozen in place as Linda began the live stream. Today we're discussing family secrets, Linda said into her microphone. And what happens when the perfect family image cracks? Mother's hand tightened around her water glass. Darling, are you sure you want to do this? Some stories are better left within the family. I pulled out the stack of hidden letters from Dad. Like these stories, Mother? The ones you burned. Her eyes flickered, the tiniest tell. Those difficult years after the divorce were difficult because you made them difficult. My voice cracked. You hid Dad's letters, edited my childhood videos, and now you're trying to use my eating disorder to promote your show. I protected you, she said, her tone shifting to the one she used for cameras, concerned, authoritative. You were so fragile after your grandmother's death. The grandmother whose brake inspection you ignored? The studio went silent. Mother's face drained of color, then reformed into something harder. Be very careful, Holly. You're not the only one with evidence. She reached into her bag, pulling out a USB drive. Remember that summer before college? Your little episode with the sleeping pills. My chest constricted. That was an accident. Is that what we'll hear in the emergency room recording? Or your therapy sessions with Dr. Avery, the ones I paid for? Linda started to interrupt, but Mother continued, her voice honey-sweet. Did you tell them about the night you threatened to jump from the balcony? How many times I had to save you from yourself? The room spun. She'd been recording everything all along, building her defense while pretending to help me heal. You didn't save me, I whispered. You created me. And you've done beautifully, darling. Your books, your success, all because I pushed you to be better. Now shall we tell your readers about the real inspiration behind your thriller heroines? About how many times Mommy had to cover up your little incidents. My throat closed. She was right. She documented everything, twisted every cry for help into ammunition, just like she'd done with her own mother. The live stream counter showed thousands watching, waiting, judging. Holly. Linda's voice seemed far away. We can stop. No. Mother's smile turned razor-sharp. Let's have the truth, shall we? About how my disturbed daughter is trying to destroy me, because she never learned to take responsibility for her own actions. My carefully gathered evidence felt worthless now. She'd turned my pain into my fault just like always, and thousands were watching me crumble. Tell them about grandmother's breaks, I said, my voice small. Tell them about the pills, she countered. About the nights you spent screaming that you hated me, that you wished I were dead. Like mother, like daughter. Isn't that what you're suggesting? The truth hit like a physical blow. She was right. I'd become her. Calculating, manipulative, willing to destroy everything for revenge. The live stream numbers kept climbing as I sat there, paralyzed by the reflection of myself in her eyes. My phone buzzed. Dad. Don't let her win. Remember who you really are. But who was I? The victim? The villain? The disturbed daughter or the righteous avenger? Mother reached across the table, her hand covering mine in a gesture that looked loving to the cameras but felt like handcuffs. Shall we tell them our truth, darling? Or should we stick to the story that sells? The red recording light kept blinking, witness to my surrender. In trying to expose her, I'd given her exactly what she wanted: control of the narrative, proof of my instability, and a live audience to witness my destruction. Well, Holly. Mother's voice dripped concern. What's it going to be? The USB drive sat between us like a loaded gun. My evidence against her life-destroying secrets about me. In the end, we'd both lose or both maintain the facade. Just like she'd planned all along. The studio lights flickered, signaling the 5-minute break. Mother reached for her water glass, her hand trembling slightly. The first real crack in her armor I'd seen in decades. Those recordings, I said quietly. You didn't just keep them to protect yourself, did you? She stiffened. Don't try to psychoanalyze me, Holly. That's what I paid Dr. Avery for. No, you kept them because you were scared. Just like your mother kept recordings of you. The glass froze halfway to her lips. What? I pulled out one final piece of evidence. An ancient cassette tape Margaret had found in grandmother's belongings. She recorded everything too. Your episodes. Your difficult phases. Sound familiar? Linda signaled 2 minutes until we were live again. Mother's perfectly manicured nails drummed against the table. You don't know what you're talking about. Play it, I said, sliding the tape across the table. Or I will. Her fingers closed around it, knuckles white. You wouldn't dare. Why not? Isn't that what you taught me? Use anything, hurt anyone, just keep control of the story. I taught you to survive. The words exploded from her, echoing in the sudden silence. The makeup artist who'd approached for touch-ups retreated quickly. 1 minute, Linda called. Mother's face crumpled for a fraction of a second before she caught herself. You don't understand what it was like being her daughter. The constant criticism, the public humiliation, the recordings. I finished. The threats? The manipulation. She looked down at the tape, then at her USB drive. 2 generations of pain, wrapped in magnetic strips and digital files. 30 seconds. We can stop this, I said. Both of us. Right now. And say what? Her laugh was bitter. That we're both damaged? That I became everything I hated about her? That you're becoming everything you hate about me? No. I reached across the table, not to touch her hand like she'd done for the cameras, but to take both drives. We say that it stops here. That we break the cycle. The red light blinked on. Mother's eyes met mine, wide with something that might have been fear or recognition. Welcome back, Linda began, but I cut her off. Before we continue, I said, standing up, I want to tell a different story. Not about victims and villains, but about patterns. About how hurt people hurt people. I held up both drives. These contain evidence. Secrets. Weapons we've gathered to destroy each other. Just like my grandmother did to my mother, and my mother did to me. Mother's mouth opened, but no sound came out. But there's one thing these recordings can't show, I continued. The moment we choose to be better. To end the cycle. I walked to the studio's coffee station, where a metal trash can sat. Mother half rose from her chair. Holly, don't. The drives clattered into the can. I pulled out my lighter. The one I'd carried since my first failed attempt at running away at 16. Holly. Mother's voice cracked. Please. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I saw past the perfect makeup and practiced smile. I saw the scared daughter beneath, the one who'd learned the wrong lessons about love and protection. I forgive you, I said, dropping the lighter in. The plastic melted, taking our weapons with it. Not for you. For me. Because I choose not to be the next link in this chain. The studio sat in stunned silence. Mother's facade cracked completely, tears cutting through her makeup. I don't know how, she whispered. I don't either, I admitted. But maybe that's where we start. Linda leaned forward. Mrs. Bennett? Would you like to respond? Mother looked at the burning trash can, then at me. Finally, she did something I'd never seen before. She reached up and wiped away her tears, smearing her perfect makeup, not caring about the cameras. "My daughter," she said slowly, "is braver than I ever was." The red light kept blinking, witness to a different kind of truth than either of us had planned. The morning sun streamed through my office window, casting shadows across the wall of reversed paintings. One by one, I turned them around, Mother's perfect family portraits facing the world again. Not as lies anymore, but as reminders. My phone buzzed. Another message from a podcast listener. They'd been pouring in since the broadcast, but this one caught my eye. "Watched with my mother. We both cried. We're talking again after 5 years." A knock at my door. Margaret stood there holding a cardboard box. "Found these while cleaning out my attic. Thought you might want them." Inside were dozens of small items from my childhood. Hair ribbons, report cards, crayon drawings, things Mother had asked Margaret to throw away for being imperfect. "She called me yesterday," Margaret said, settling into my reading chair. "First time since I quit. She asked about the day you won the spelling bee. The one where I stumbled on stage? The one where you got back up and won anyway." Margaret smiled. She said she finally understands why that was more important than how you looked doing it. My laptop chimed. An email from my publisher. The subject line read, "New book proposal?" Below was my working title, "Perfectly Imperfect: Breaking the Cycle of Generational Trauma." Another knock. Dad and Rachel carrying coffee and bagels. "We saw Mother's announcement," Rachel said. "About canceling her show?" Dad nodded. "And about checking into therapy. Real therapy this time, not just for show." I touched one of the family portraits, tracing the frozen smiles. Dr. Avery recommended someone for her. Someone who specializes in generational patterns. "Are you ready for this?" Dad asked. "The real work starts now." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. Mother's number. Not a text this time, a photo. Her sitting at her vanity, makeup removed, holding up her own childhood photo. The caption read, "Learning to face mirrors honestly. Both kinds." "She's trying," Rachel said softly. "We both are." I picked up one of my childhood drawings from Margaret's box. A family portrait in crayon, everyone holding hands. It's not about forgetting anymore, or even really forgiving. It's about understanding. Dad touched the drawing. "Your mother called me too. Asked about those letters she burned. She wants to know what they said." "What did you tell her?" "That maybe it's time to write new ones." I looked at my laptop screen, at the book proposal waiting for a response. The cursor blinked at the end of the title, waiting for more. Margaret stood to leave, pausing at my wall of thriller novels. "Will you still write them? Now that you've told the scariest story of all?" I thought about Mother's face in the studio when I burned the evidence, about how breaking things isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about making space for something new to grow. "I think," I said, "there are different kinds of thrillers. Some are about revenge. Some are about survival. And some are about the scariest thing of all, changing who we thought we had to be." My phone buzzed one final time. Mother again. "Having coffee tomorrow at that little place by your office. The one with the imperfect china you always loved. If you're free." I looked at Dad, at Rachel, at Margaret, my chosen family who'd helped me find my voice. Then at Mother's message, an invitation, not a command. A door cracked open, not a cage. I picked up my childhood drawing and pinned it next to my book covers. Perfect smiles replaced by crooked crayon lines. Both versions of the truth, both part of the story. "Tell her I'll be there," I typed back. "And tell her to come as she is. We both will." The morning sun shifted, illuminating the wall of paintings, books, and drawings. Different versions of the same story, finally learning to coexist. Not perfectly, but honestly. And maybe that was the better ending anyway.
The raffle ticket trembled between my fingers as Dr. Stevens called out the winning numbers. One by one, they matched mine, each digit a tiny explosion in my chest. When he announced I'd won the luxury Napa Valley getaway, I couldn't stop grinning. 2 nights at the Golden Valley Resort, wine tastings, spa treatments, everything Brandon and I desperately needed. "Congratulations, Joy." My coworker Adam clapped me on the back. "About time something good happened around here." I clutched the golden envelope to my chest, already imagining Brandon's face when I surprised him. We hadn't taken a real vacation since our honeymoon 3 years ago. Between his demanding sales job and his mother's constant emergencies, we barely had time for date nights anymore. "He's going to flip," I said, more to myself than Adam. "In a good way, I hope." Adam's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. He'd heard enough of my marriage troubles over lunch breaks to fill a therapy session. I rushed home early, stopping to pick up Brandon's favorite takeout and a bottle of champagne. The house was quiet when I walked in. No mother-in-law camping on our couch or calling with her latest crisis. Perfect. Brandon came home late, as usual. His tie was loose, dark circles under his eyes. "Hey, babe," he mumbled, barely looking up from his phone. "I have amazing news." I set out the food, poured champagne. "Remember that company raffle?" He glanced up briefly. "The charity thing? I won. 2 nights at Golden Valley Resort in Napa, all expenses paid. Just you and me, next weekend." I held out the envelope like an offering. Brandon's fingers froze on his phone. "Next weekend? Yes, isn't it perfect? We can finally have that romantic getaway we've been talking about." He set his phone down slowly. "Joy, Mom's having her knee surgery next weekend. I told you I needed to be there for her recovery." The champagne bubbles turned sour in my stomach. "That's just a minor outpatient procedure. The doctor said she'd be fine in a day." "She needs me there. You know how she gets anxious about medical stuff since Dad died." "She has a whole church group ready to help her. And Tom—" "Don't bring up Tom." Brandon's voice hardened. "He abandoned her. I won't do the same thing." I took a deep breath. What if you took her instead of me?" The words felt like betrayal in my mouth, but I had to know. Brandon's face lit up. "That's perfect. Mom would love it. She's always wanted to visit wine country." The room spun slightly. "I was joking, Brandon. The prize is for couples. I won it. I want to go with my husband." "Don't be selfish, Joy. Mom needs this more than we do. She's been so lonely lately." "Selfish?" The word hit like a slap. "I'm selfish for wanting 2 days alone with my husband?" Brandon stood up, food untouched. "If you can't understand how much Mom needs me right now, maybe we need to rethink some things." "What things?" "This marriage, our priorities." He grabbed his keys. "I'm going to check on Mom. Don't wait up." The front door slammed, leaving me alone with cooling takeout and flat champagne. My phone buzzed. A text from Grace. "How'd he take the news?" I stared at the golden envelope, now crumpled in my fist. 3 years of putting Linda first. 3 years of canceled dates and interrupted moments. 3 years of watching my marriage dissolve into a twisted threesome I never signed up for. My fingers flew across the phone. "You free for coffee? I need to talk about revenge." Grace stirred her coffee with calculated precision, her eyes fixed on me across the diner booth. "He actually suggested taking his mother instead of you?" I pushed my untouched eggs around the plate. "You know what kills me? 5 years ago, Brandon would have never done this. Remember our wedding? He actually told Linda to back off when she tried to plan the whole thing herself." "I remember." "What changed?" The question hung between us like smoke. My mind drifted to our first anniversary when Brandon surprised me with a weekend in Seattle. We made it halfway there before Linda called, claiming chest pains. By the time we got to the emergency room, she was chatting with nurses about their children. Nothing wrong with her heart, just a panic attack, they said. "Everything changed after his father died," I said. "It's like Brandon's terrified of losing her too." Grace's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then her eyes widened. "Speaking of Linda, isn't that her?" I turned. Through the diner's front window, I watched my mother-in-law stride into the boutique across the street, looking remarkably spry for someone facing knee surgery next week. "Let's follow her," Grace said, already reaching for her purse. "What? No, that's exactly what we're doing." She threw down cash for our breakfast. "Come on, Nancy Drew." We crossed the street, ducking into the boutique. Linda stood at a rack of designer dresses, holding up a sequined number that cost more than my monthly car payment. "Can you believe Brandon?" she was saying into her phone. "Trying to waste that lovely prize on Joy when he knows I've always wanted to see wine country? Yes, I know the knee thing was last minute, but it worked, didn't it?" My stomach clenched. Grace grabbed my arm, steadying me. "Of course I feel bad. Linda continued. But what choice do I have? Ever since his father died, I've had to get creative to keep him close. You should have seen how he used to be with her, Sarah. Like I didn't even exist. The dress slipped from my numb fingers, hitting the floor with a soft thud. Linda spun around. Our eyes met. I'll call you back, she said quickly, ending the call. Her face transformed, concern replacing calculation. Joy, what a surprise. I was just looking for something to wear after my surgery. Funny, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. I thought you'd be resting that knee. Oh, the doctor said light activity is good for circulation. She smiled, but her eyes darted toward the exit. I should get going. So much to do before next week. Like planning your wine tour? The color drained from her face. I don't know what you think you heard. I heard enough. I stepped closer. You're not having surgery at all, are you? Now, Joy, don't jump to conclusions. Brandon wouldn't like... Brandon isn't here. My voice dropped lower. But I am, and I heard everything. Linda's facade cracked. You don't understand. After Robert died, Brandon was all I had left. Then you came along, and suddenly he had someone else to care about. Do you know what that's like? To watch someone you love choose someone else? Yeah, Linda, I do. She reached for my arm. I stepped back. Please don't tell him, she whispered. He wouldn't understand. Grace appeared at my side, phone in hand. Too late, I recorded everything. Linda's eyes narrowed. You wouldn't dare. I thought about Brandon, about our ruined Seattle trip, about countless dinners interrupted by his mother's emergencies, about the way he looked at me last night, choosing her over me without hesitation. You're right, I said. I won't tell him? Yet. But that Napa trip, it's staying mine, and if you try to interfere, Brandon will hear exactly how creative you've gotten at keeping him close. I turned and walked out, Grace beside me, leaving Linda clutching her designer dress like a shield. Outside, my hands shook as I gulped the cool morning air. That was badass, Grace said softly. What now? I watched Linda hurry out of the boutique, phone already pressed to her ear. Now we start planning that trip to Napa, and this time, I'm not taking no for an answer. The bank statement trembled in my hands as I stared at the series of transfers. $2,000 last month, $1,500 the month before, all to an account I didn't recognize. Our savings had been hemorrhaging money for months, and I'd finally discovered why. I called the bank. 5 minutes later, I had my answer. The account belonged to Linda Parker. The front door clicked open. Brandon walked in, whistling. He froze when he saw me at the kitchen table, papers spread out like evidence at a crime scene. You're home early, he said. Funny thing about that. I held up the statement. I had to leave work when the mortgage company called. Apparently, we're 2 months behind on payments. The whistle died on his lips. I can explain. Please do. Explain why you've been sending thousands to your mother while we default on our house. She needed help with medical bills. What medical bills, Brandon? The fake knee surgery? The words shot out before I could stop them. His face darkened. What are you talking about? I saw her yesterday, shopping for designer dresses, strutting around like a runway model. Some knee problem. You're spying on my mother now? No, I'm discovering how deep her manipulation goes. And yours. Brandon slumped into a chair. It's not what you think. After Dad died, after your father died, you became her emotional husband. I get it. But stealing from our future? That's crossing a line. I didn't steal anything. It's our money. Our money? When was the last time you consulted me about our money? The silence stretched between us like a chasm. My phone buzzed. A text from Grace. Found Tom's number. Want it? Brandon noticed my expression change. Who's that? Your brother. He shot up from his chair. Stay away from Tom. He doesn't understand our family. Maybe he understands more than you think. I stood, gathering the bank statements. I'm going to Grace's tonight. Don't wait up. Joy, wait. He grabbed my arm. Mom needs us. She's all alone. And whose fault is that? I yanked free. Did you ever wonder why Tom left? Why your father spent so much time at work? Why I'm leaving right now? You're not leaving. We can fix this. Can we? Because from where I'm standing, there are 3 people in this marriage, and I'm the only one being honest. I walked out, my heart hammering. In my car, I texted Grace back, "Send Tom's number. Time to hear the other side of this story." An hour later, I sat across from Tom Parker in a quiet bar on the edge of town. He looked like Brandon, but harder, weathered by years of choosing freedom over family obligation. "So," he said, studying his whiskey, "little brother's following in mother's footsteps." "What do you mean?" "The money thing. It's how she controlled Dad, too. Emotional blackmail backed by financial manipulation. She'd spend recklessly, then cry about bills until he gave in. When he finally stood up to her, he trailed off. What happened? Heart attack at 55. Stress, the doctor said, but I knew better. Tom's knuckles whitened around his glass. Brandon was always her favorite, more pliable. After Dad died, I tried to warn him. He chose her side. Haven't spoken since. My phone lit up with Brandon's 10th message. "Please come home. We can work this out." "You know what the worst part is?" Tom continued. "She's not evil. She's just empty. Nothing's ever enough. Not Dad's love, not my independence, not Brandon's devotion. And now, not your marriage." "How did you break free?" He smiled grimly. I realized something. Sometimes loving someone means walking away, letting them face the consequences of their choices. I thought about the Napa tickets sitting in my purse, about Brandon's ultimatum, about years of putting Linda first. "I have an idea," I said slowly, "but I'll need your help." Tom leaned forward. "I'm listening." "It's time for a family reunion, one that forces everyone to face the truth, even if it breaks us all." 3 days at Grace's house turned into a week. Brandon's calls became less frequent, his messages shorter. Each one ended the same way. "Mom needs me," never "I need you," or "come home." I threw myself into work, but even there, I couldn't escape. Adam caught me crying in the break room, staring at an old photo on my phone. Brandon and me in Seattle before we turned back. "You look different there," Adam said, sliding a coffee across the table. "Happy?" I tried to smile. "Real?" He hesitated. "Listen, there's something you should know. I overheard Brandon on a call yesterday during the client meeting." My stomach tightened. Brandon hadn't mentioned any meeting. "He was talking about selling stocks," Adam continued. "Something about needing quick cash for a down payment." "Down payment?" The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. "What down payment?" "On a condo. For his mother." The mug slipped from my hands, shattering against the floor. Coffee spread like blood across the tiles. "Joy, I have to go." I grabbed my purse, leaving the mess behind. 20 minutes later, I sat in our investment advisor's office, watching him pull up our accounts. The numbers confirmed my worst fears. Brandon had liquidated almost everything. "The transfer started 3 months ago," the advisor explained. "Mr. Parker said you were both aware. We weren't both anything." I stood up, the room spinning slightly. "Thank you for your time." Outside, I called Tom. "Did you know about the condo?" "What condo?" "The one your brother's buying for Linda, with our retirement funds." Silence crackled across the line. Then, "Meet me at Murphy's, now." At the bar, Tom nursed a scotch while I paced. "She did this before," he said finally, "right before Dad died. Convinced him to buy her a vacation house in Florida. Said she needed somewhere to heal after her imaginary cancer scare." "Cancer scare?" "One of her greatest hits. Lasted 6 months. Miraculous recovery, of course." He laughed bitterly. "Dad died before the closing. Heart attack, remember? The stress of refinancing everything." My phone buzzed. Brandon again. This time, I answered. "Where are you?" His voice was tight. "Mom's worried sick." "Is she, or is she too busy condo shopping?" The line went quiet. "Who told you?" "Does it matter? Were you going to tell me before or after you emptied our accounts?" "You don't understand." "No, you don't understand. I just left our investment advisor's office. You didn't just take our savings, Brandon. You took our future. Mom needs security after everything she's been through." "Everything she's been through?" My voice rose. "What about what she's put us through? What about what she did to your father?" Don't bring him into this. Why not? Because you might realize you're following his footsteps right into an early grave. Tom flinched beside me. I'm doing what's right, Brandon said. If you can't support that? If I can't support that, what? You'll leave me? Newsflash, Brandon. You left this marriage a long time ago. I just didn't want to admit it. I hung up before he could respond. Tom watched me carefully. What now? He asked. My phone lit up with a text from Grace. Found you an apartment, 3-month lease available immediately. Another message popped up, this one from Linda. Please don't destroy my family. Brandon needs me. I stared at the words, feeling something shift inside me. Not sadness anymore, not even anger. Something colder, more focused. Now? I looked at Tom. Now we stop playing defense. You said Linda had a miracle recovery from her cancer scare? He nodded slowly. I bet there are medical records, or rather, a lack of them. Records that might interest Brandon's therapist or his lawyer. Joy, she wants to play games with people's lives? Fine, but I'm done being a pawn. I stood up, steadier than I'd felt in weeks. It's time to show Linda what happens when you push someone too far. Tom's expression darkened with recognition. You sound like Dad, right before the end. Good, I said, reaching for my keys. Because this is the end, just not the one Linda's expecting. The hospital records lay scattered across Grace's dining room table like pieces of a twisted puzzle. Tom's contact at County General had come through. Every medical file for Linda Parker over the past decade. Nothing, Grace said, shuffling through papers. No cancer screenings, no serious illnesses, just routine checkups and... She paused, frowning at a document. What? Psychiatric referrals, lots of them, all declined. My phone buzzed. Brandon. Coming home tonight, we need to talk about the condo. I ignored it, focusing on the papers. Look at these dates. The first referral was right after your father died, I said to Tom. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. 2 weeks before she claimed she found the lump. The imaginary lump that convinced your father to buy that house. And nearly bankrupted him doing it? Tom's jaw tightened. History repeating itself. Grace's doorbell rang. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of Linda's silver Mercedes. Perfect timing, I muttered, grabbing the files. Let's see how she handles her own medical history. But when Grace opened the door, it wasn't Linda who stepped inside. It was Brandon. Mom's in the car, he said quickly. She doesn't know I'm here. His eyes locked onto the papers in my hands. What are those? Your mother's greatest performances. I held up a psychiatric referral. Tell me, did she ever mention these? You had no right. Like you had no right to drain our accounts? I stepped closer. Your father died because of her games, Brandon. And you're following the same path. Dad died of a heart attack. After months of financial stress and emotional manipulation. Just like what she's doing to you now. Brandon's face flushed. The condo is an investment? It's a trap, just like the Florida house was for your father, just like this marriage has become for me. Joy, I'm going to Napa next weekend, I cut him off. With or without you, but first you need to see something. I handed him the psychiatric referrals. His hands trembled as he read. Multiple recommendations for treatment of factitious disorder, he mumbled. Tendency to fabricate medical conditions for attention and control. A car horn blared outside, Linda growing impatient. She needs help, Brandon. Real help, not enabling. He looked up, tears in his eyes. What am I supposed to do? Choose. Right now. Stay here. Read these files, face the truth, or go back to that car and keep pretending. The horn sounded again, longer this time. She's waiting, I said softly. Brandon stared at the papers, then at me. For a moment, I saw a glimmer of the man I'd married. Strong, independent, capable of standing up to his mother's manipulation. Then his phone buzzed. Linda's text lit up the screen. I'm feeling dizzy. Please hurry. Just like that, the glimmer vanished. He set the papers down. I can't leave her alone like this. Like what? Perfectly healthy but desperate for attention? You don't understand. No, you don't understand. This ends now. Either you stay and face reality or I'm done. And I'm taking everything we have left to court. Brandon stepped back, shaking his head. You wouldn't. Try me. I've got 3 years of financial records and a stack of medical files that prove elder abuse by proxy. How do you think a judge will view that? The horn blared a third time. Brandon looked at the door, then back at me. I'm sorry, he whispered and walked out. I watched through the window as he got into the Mercedes. As they drove away, Tom placed a hand on my shoulder. Now what? I picked up my phone, dialing my lawyer's number. Now we do this my way. Book your ticket to Napa, Tom. It's time for that family reunion we discussed. Joy, Grace warned. Revenge won't fix this. This isn't about revenge anymore. I watched the Mercedes disappear around the corner. It's about survival, and I'm done being the victim in Linda Parker's tragedy. The Napa Valley sunset painted everything gold, but I felt nothing but cold as I watched Brandon's car pull into the resort parking lot. Linda sat in the passenger seat, exactly where I should have been. Right on schedule, Tom muttered beside me. Mom never could resist crashing a party. I clutched the envelope containing the medical records. Did you send the anonymous tip? Called the front desk an hour ago. They think she's here for a surprise anniversary celebration. Brandon helped Linda out of the car, her movements deliberately slow and fragile. The same act she'd perfected during her cancer scare, now recycled for a new audience. Show time, I whispered, stepping into view. Brandon froze. Linda's hand flew to her chest, her signature move when feeling faint. Joy? Brandon's voice cracked. What are you doing here? Enjoying my prize. The question is, what are you doing here, with her? Linda swayed dramatically. Brandon, I'm feeling dizzy. Drop the act, Linda. Tom emerged from the shadows. We've seen this performance before. The color drained from Linda's face. Tom, Brandon, what's happening? That's what I'd like to know. Brandon looked between us, lost. Why are you both? Because someone needs to stop this. I opened the envelope. Remember these, Linda? The psychiatric referrals you ignored? The ones from right before Robert's death? Linda straightened, her fragility act forgotten. Those are private. Like the private accounts Brandon's been funding? Or the private conversations about the condo? Joy, please. Brandon stepped forward. This isn't the place. It's exactly the place. Where else could I get you both away from your carefully constructed reality? You're making a scene, Linda hissed. No, I'm making a point. I turned to Brandon. Your father died because of her manipulation. Tom left because he couldn't take it anymore. And now you're throwing away our marriage for what? Another of her fabricated emergencies? Brandon's phone buzzed. Probably the front desk about the surprise celebration. He ignored it, staring at the medical files in my hands. Mom? His voice was small, uncertain. What are they talking about? Linda's mask cracked. They're trying to turn you against me, just like Tom did. Just like your father. Don't you dare mention Dad, Tom snapped. You killed him with your games. I loved him. You consumed him, I corrected. Like you're consuming Brandon. Brandon stepped back, shaking his head. This isn't... I can't... Choose Brandon, I said quietly. Right here, right now. Your mother's lies or the truth. Linda grabbed his arm. I'm your mother. I need you. No, I cut in. You want him. There's a difference. Brandon looked at the files, at his brother, at me. For a moment, I saw clarity in his eyes. Then Linda collapsed. Not her usual delicate swoon, but a full theatrical fall. Brandon caught her automatically, years of conditioning taking over. Mom! Mom! Call an ambulance, Linda gasped. My heart. I watched Brandon transform back into the dutiful son, all clarity vanishing as he cradled his mother. Tom's hand found my shoulder. Joy, don't. I stepped back, something breaking inside me. I'm done. Brandon looked up, torn. Joy, please, I have to. Take care of her, I know. I dropped the medical files at his feet. You always do. Linda's eyes met mine through her performance, triumphant. She'd won again. I turned away, my carefully planned confrontation crumbling like sand. Behind me, I heard Brandon calling for help. Linda's theatrical moans, Tom's disgusted sigh. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with a text from Grace. How did it go? I watched the golden sunset fade to purple, thinking of all the years I'd wasted fighting a battle that was rigged from the start. Some people don't want to be saved from their demons. Sometimes they prefer the familiar chains to uncertain freedom. "It's over," I typed back. "Time to let go." The ambulance sirens wailed in the distance, a fitting soundtrack to the death of my marriage. I walked away from the scene, leaving Brandon to his chosen fate. Behind me, Linda's performance reached its crescendo, but I didn't look back. Some victories only come through surrender. The emergency room buzzed with fluorescent intensity as I strode past the nurse's station. Linda's latest performance had landed her in the cardiac ward, though her preliminary tests showed nothing wrong. Of course. I found her alone in room 412, Brandon presumably off fetching her another blanket or ice chip or whatever else she'd demanded. She looked smaller in the hospital bed, more vulnerable, but her eyes were sharp as ever when they met mine. "Come to gloat?" she asked. "No, I came to give you this." I placed a worn leather journal on her bedside table. "Found it in Robert's old briefcase. Tom kept it all these years." Linda's hand trembled as she reached for it. "Robert's diary?" "His suicide note, essentially. Every manipulation, every fake illness, every financial drain, he documented it all. Right up until the day his heart gave out." She withdrew her hand as if burned. "You're lying. Read it yourself. Page 47 is particularly interesting. The day you first mentioned that non-existent lump." The hospital machinery beeped steadily as Linda stared at the journal. "You don't understand what it's like," she whispered, "to watch your children slip away, to feel yourself becoming unnecessary." "So you make yourself necessary through lies? Through emotional blackmail?" "I keep my family close. You keep them trapped, and now you're doing it to Brandon." She lifted her chin. "Brandon loves me. Brandon fears you. There's a difference." I moved closer. "But here's what you should fear. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. I'm taking what's left of our money, all traceable to your fake emergencies. And this journal, copies are going to Brandon's therapist and lawyer. He'll never believe. Maybe not at first, but seeds of doubt are funny things. They grow. Just ask Tom." Footsteps approached, Brandon returning. Linda's face contorted with panic. "What do you want?" she hissed. "Get help, real help, the kind those psychiatric referrals suggested years ago, or I'll make sure Brandon sees exactly what happened to his father." Brandon appeared in the doorway, clutching a cup of ice chips. He froze, looking between us. "Everything okay?" he asked cautiously. I turned to leave, but Linda's voice stopped me. "Wait." She was crying now, real tears this time. "Brandon, there's something I need to tell you." I watched the scene unfold, Linda confessing to her lies, Brandon's face crumpling as she described the years of manipulation. The truth about his father's death, the fabricated illnesses, the financial destruction. I couldn't bear to lose you too," she finished. Brandon sat heavily in the visitor's chair, his world reshaping itself around this new reality. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow. "All this time, I'm sorry," Linda whispered. "I'll get help. I promise. Just don't leave me alone." Brandon looked at me, then back at his mother. I saw the choice weighing on him, the same choice his father never got to make. "You won't be alone, Mom," he said finally, "but you need help, professional help, and I need time." He stood up, shoulders straight for the first time in years. "Joy, I'll be at Grace's," I said softly, "when you're ready to talk." Linda called out as I reached the door. "I really am sorry, for everything." I turned back one last time. I know, that's why I brought the journal instead of sending it straight to Brandon. Everyone deserves one chance to choose truth over lies. In the hallway, Tom waited by the elevator. "How'd it go?" "Better than revenge," I said. "She's finally facing herself." "And Brandon?" I watched through the window as Brandon held his mother's hand, both of them crying now, not from manipulation, but from truth. He's facing himself too. Sometimes that's the hardest battle of all. The elevator doors opened. As we stepped in, I heard Linda ask for her psychiatrist referral papers. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemy, but in helping them find their way back to humanity, even if that means letting go of your own need for revenge. The Italian sun warmed my face as I sipped espresso at the small cafe in Florence. Grace had insisted on this trip. Healing through carbs, she called it. My phone buzzed with a text from Tom, a photo of Linda at her therapy session, actually showing up this time. Progress, however small. Another postcard? Grace nodded at the blank card on our table. Last one. I'd been writing them throughout our trip, not to send, but to say the things I needed to say. This one was for Brandon. The waiter brought our bill just as my phone buzzed again. Brandon's name lit up the screen, his first contact since signing the divorce papers 3 weeks ago. The condo sale went through, his message read, using the money for Mom's treatment instead. I set the phone down, letting the weight of those words settle. No accusations, no guilt trips, just truth. The one thing that had been missing from our marriage for so long. You okay? Grace asked. Better than okay. I picked up my pen, finally knowing what to write on that last postcard. Not about revenge or justice or even forgiveness. Something simpler, more honest. A shadow fell across our table. I looked up to find Adam, his familiar pragmatic smile somehow softer in the Tuscan light. Fancy meeting you here, he said. Grace's eyes widened. Did you? I might have mentioned our itinerary to him, I admitted. Sometimes the best way forward is with someone who saw you clearly all along. Adam pulled up a chair, ordered an espresso in surprisingly decent Italian. We talked about everything and nothing. Work, travel, the way life surprises you when you stop trying to control it. My phone buzzed one more time, a message from Linda. Thank you for the journal, for giving me a chance to choose differently. I thought about revenge, about how I'd wanted to destroy her, to make her feel as trapped as I had. But in the end, the greatest victory wasn't in tearing someone down. It was in finding the strength to walk away, to let them face their own demons while you face your future. There's this little vineyard in Chianti, Adam said, his knee brushing mine under the table. If you're interested. Grace kicked me softly, grinning. I looked at the postcard, still blank except for Brandon's name. What do you say to someone who is both your greatest love and your hardest lesson? In the end, I wrote just 3 words. Choose yourself first. The waiter returned with Adam's coffee, asking if we needed anything else. I caught my reflection in the window, no longer the woman who'd won that Napa Valley trip, desperate to save a marriage that was already gone. Someone stronger now. Someone who understood that sometimes the happy ending isn't about winning or losing, but about finding the courage to write your own story. Actually, I said, both to the waiter and to whatever twist of fate had brought me here, we'll take another round. We're celebrating. What are we celebrating? Adam asked. I tucked the postcard into my bag, unsigned. Some words don't need to be sent to be heard. New chapters, I said, raising my cup. And the art of letting go. Grace and Adam lifted their cups too, the afternoon sun turning everything to gold. Somewhere back home, Brandon was learning to set boundaries, Linda was facing her fears in therapy, and Tom was rebuilding bridges he'd thought forever burned. And here, in this moment, I was exactly where I needed to be. Not because I'd won or lost, but because I'd finally understood that the greatest act of revenge against a life that's trapped you is to simply set yourself free. The espresso was bitter and perfect on my tongue, tasting like truth, like possibility, like the kind of peace that comes not from victory, but from finally, completely, letting go.